How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 237 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne, all of us with you for this one. Boys, hard to believe that we are already at the end of March, pretty much here. But playoff hockey is right around the corner in the NHL. Looking forward to that. And looking forward to episode 237 here. A little Calder Trophy talk. We've got some candidates each that we are going to go over. But before that, let's kick it off with core four stories for this episode. Chad, fire it away.
Yeah, here we go.
Core four.
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 Okay, fellas, let's start with the biggest news of the week. John Tortorella out in Philadelphia as head coach. Brad Shaw takes over on an interim basis, and the Flyers have actually looked pretty good under Shaw so far. They've won a couple of games, and just craziness around this story this week. Definitely the biggest headline. You know, we had the Torts post-game press conference and his comments basically saying, you know, after that Toronto game, I think it was earlier in the week, that, you know, I'm not really interested in coaching a rebuilding team, a team that is in this spot right now. You know, verbatim is what he was getting at, essentially. And then Kevin Kurz of The Athletic reporting, and this was backed up afterwards, that Tortorella had crossed a line with Cam York, that there was a heated verbal, discussion that was going on, or argument rather, between the player and the coach. York ended up being benched. He actually was benched the following game as well under Brad Shaw for breaking a team rule, apparently. So just all kinds of layers to this thing, but nonetheless, John Tortorella out in Philadelphia. Brad Shaw takes over on an interim basis. It's been a tough season for the Flyers. They're rebuilding. Let's start with this news.
I just don't know what he expected. These comments would have made, even more sense if he said them the first season he joined them, when he joined a rebuilding team to coach them, a team that had a lot of, young guys that are kind of on the cusp of sort of hitting stride and starting the end of the rebuild 3 years ago. And now all these players had to be moved on from and traded to Calgary because John Tortorella didn't do his job of coaching them out of a rebuild and into their prime. And now he's deciding, I don't really want to coach a rebuild. And then, of course, those comments you make in a press conference are going to lead to you getting fired. So obviously that's what he wanted. And when are we going to realize that every team he goes to and every team he has, not just like when he changes teams, but next year, there's some sort of conflict with a player, and it always seems to be a star player at that, which makes, no sense. So do we say that John Tortorella is the problem? Is this a new thing that we're saying, or is this just something we all have known all along, except for the people that keep hiring?
Yeah, I think it's the latter there, Case. It seems like everywhere he goes, like you said, there's always an issue with him, and that for that reason, coaches like Tortorella have a pretty short shelf life. They don't last very long. So how many years has he been in Philly? Was this his third season?
I think so.
Fourth, maybe? Like it seems like his time was past due anyway. I don't think it was the right hire in the first place. I remember we talked about it when it happened way back when, and it just felt like wrong coach at the wrong time. At the start of a rebuild, usually it would make the most sense to bring in more of a player's coach to sort of help the guys develop. And then when you need to, get into the playoffs or get over the hump in some way, that's when you bring in this guy who's sort of more of a, hard-nosed type guy. But yeah, those comments after the Leafs game were insane. Like I watched the presser and I was like, like we're going to hear about this. And then sure enough, like it's front page news the next day on every platform. And yeah, then he gets canned like 6 hours after. So it's like, if you want to say like, yeah, I'm not really interested in coaching this style of team or whatever the exact words he said were, yeah, you should expect some ramifications. And honestly, good for the Flyers and their organization group for just saying, like, you know what, we're not going to put up with this. Like, we have some sort of self-respect, and if John Tortorella is not interested in learning how to coach our team, then the hell with him. Like, we'll get another guy to do it. So good for them. I don't know what happened with the whole Cam York situation, but again, I think it was Elliot who said this the other day, like, kind of in the same vein. It's like, good on the Flyers organization for setting the ground rules in, like, for that team. And it sounds like Torts went too far, but you can't let a situation fester. You can't let young players break rules. You know, you need to have some sort of ground rules when your team is so pathetic, you know, so that's a good thing for the culture, but you can't have a voice like Tortorella going too far. So honestly, I think the Flyers did what was right in this situation by canning Torts. And I don't know if he's going to coach again in the league. Like, people are saying that he's going to get opportunities to coach again. Who knows if that's going to come sooner or later, but he'll probably be on a panel for the playoffs somewhere talking about the game. And it's like, oh God, like, do we really need to hear more from this guy? You know, like, that's where I'm at with Tortorella in general.
Yeah, somebody in the playoffs will do the Michigan or something crazy like that he won't like, and he'll be on some panel going off about it. Anyway, I think the way to sum this up is wrong coach for this team. Just not the right coach for this team at all. They're rebuilding. They need somebody who's young and is going to develop these players. We'll see if Brad Shaw is that guy. I wonder about Ian LaPerriere, former NHLer. You guys may remember him. Him and Briere are pretty tight. He's coaching Lehigh Valley right now, their farm club in the AHL. I wonder about him as well. Anyway, that was a big headline this week. We'll keep an eye on the Flyers situation moving forward. BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sportsbooks to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there's never been a better time to get signed up, and we're here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping right away with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through the link in the description down below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use the link and support the boys. So one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This podcast is also sponsored by the absolute best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. If the tickets are green, for example, you better act quick and secure those things because that's a good deal. But if the tickets are red, maybe wait a bit before pulling the trigger and monitor the price in the app. SeatGeek just makes it way too easy. Anyway, here's the best part though. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BoysInTheBooth in all caps. So click the link in the description down below to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
Boys, let's get to a team that is red hot right now. The St. Louis Blues have won 9 in a row. I was watching that game against the Colorado Avalanche over the weekend. They got by the Avs 2-1. Jordan Binnington has picked up right where he left off at the Four Nations. He has been terrific, and Jim Montgomery has done a heck of a job there behind the bench. The Blues in a playoff spot right now, in one of those 2 wild card spots, actually breathing down the necks of the Minnesota Wild right now. And they look like a team that is going to be back in the playoffs for the first time since 2019. Let's talk about the red hot St. Louis Blues, who have won 9 in a row. My goodness, who saw this coming?
They always seem like they're still in the game. They've gone down in the score and come back every single time. And it's because their stars have shown up in a big way. A star, which we talked about last week, and Dylan Holloway, who has 15 points in those last 10 games. And Robert Thomas, who is their guy, putting up 17 points in 10 games, or the last 10 games. It's huge. The guys are stepping up. They're getting a ton of depth scoring as well. And then goaltending. We have Binner, who we know plays big in big games, and these games have been huge for them to get back in the playoffs. So I think when you look at the makeup of the team, not necessarily the skill and talent level, but like a lot of guys who have a lot of fire in them, and it's resulting in them winning big games.
100%. And, we talked about this a lot last week, Case, when we were talking about Holloway, so we don't have to get too deep into it again, but it's just a team getting hot at the right time, who chose to keep the band together rather than breaking them up and selling at the deadline, because they realized they have good players who just kept winning, and, they realized that they're capable of that. The way that they're built, I feel like we've talked about this team in the past, like, they have a lot of guys in and around the same age, that sort of early mid-20s, who are all kind of hitting their stride at the right time. But then they also have those older guys who have been there and done that, like a Binnington, who won the Cup, obviously, in 2019, like Braden Shen, who famously wasn't traded at the deadline. So they've got a great mix. And speaking of Binnington, like we've talked about it, but just looking at his last games, I just pulled it up on NHL.com, but win, loss, win, loss, win, and the list goes on. So like those are his last however many starts. The guy's just getting it done. Like he might not be the prettiest goalie to look at. He might not have the best numbers year in, year out, but man, when he's hot, when he's feeling himself, he can be one of the best in the league, and they're going to rely on him going forward here for this playoff push, which isn't even a push anymore. I think they're solidified in that spot, you would at least hope, with the amount of points in hand they have right now. But yeah, like it's a remarkable team, because it just feels like, every year they're either like they're a team who can surprise you, right? And that's kind of what they're doing right now. They're never really out of it. They can just get hot and keep going, and they could be a problem for someone in the first round. Like the way they're built, all their guys firing on all cylinders, could be a problem for a team in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to correct myself on something, boys. Obviously, they won the Stanley Cup back in 2018-19. They did make the postseason the next 3 years after that. And then this could be, or it's certainly looking to be like it will be their first playoff appearance in 2 seasons. So a little correction there on that from my side of things. Also, just wanted to point out too, this is continuous bad luck for the Boston Bruins when it comes to coaches who leave. Bruce Cassidy gets fired, goes and wins a Stanley Cup with the Vegas Golden Knights, and then Jim Montgomery gets fired, earlier on this season. The Bruins certainly aren't making the playoffs. They were big sellers at the deadline, and now Montgomery is taking this young Blues team into the playoffs by all accounts. So the bad luck continues for the Bruins when it comes to coaches who have left the organization. All right, from the Red Hot Blues, we go to a pretty, classy, touching thing that we saw this week, guys. Alex Ovechkin, who scored a couple of goals today against the Buffalo Sabres, even though it was a loss for Washington. We know that they are going to the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's been a wonderful season for them, a wonderful season for Ovi, and he is now 4 away from Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record. So that is fantastic as his tremendous season continues and the Gr8 Chase continues. And earlier this week, just saw a great moment that Ovi initiated, and that was with Marc-Andre Fleury. Everyone on the Capitals side, is going to leave the ice, and this is after the game against the Minnesota Wild, of course, calls everybody to come back to give their respects to Marc-Andre Fleury, who looks like is retiring at the end of this season. Great image right there that we've got up on the screen. A tremendous amount of respect between those two. They've had so many great battles over the years in the Capitals Penguins days, and just thought that was such a classy move by Ovi to show respect for a guy that he has scored on a bunch. He is the number one goaltender for that he scored the most of his goals on in his career, in Marc-Andre Fleury. I just think that was really, really cool to see. I know that you guys agree. Let's touch on that one.
Yeah, really classy move. And I think it's funny that when I think of Ovechkin and Fleury together, I think of that pre-game skate where they're slashing each other in the shins. Do you remember that? Ovi came by and kind of gave Fleury a whack on the pads, and then Fleury skates like pissed off directly at him, skating by the red line, and slashes him in the ankle. I just think of that. Like, these two guys hate each other, but at the end of the game, at the end of the day, you have to respect game. And they respect each other, and this was a huge sign of respect. And I also saw in the comments, someone said, wouldn't this be the most classic Marc-Andre Fleury prank to play next year? To get everyone to do these things for him and then play another season would be classic Fleury.
That would be classic. Yeah, great moment, Harp. Good thing you brought it up here, because I did want to mention the fact that Fleury is the guy who Ovi has scored on the most in his career, which just makes the most sense, when you think about those two teams who battled it out in the Metro for so long. But yeah, I watched Ovi today tip a puck in, blasted another one from the point against the Sabres and almost got the second one, but now he's just 5 back of passing Gretzky, so 4 back of tying the record. It's just incredible what he's doing, and I think, speaking of that rivalry between Pittsburgh and Washington, I think they play one more time this season, if I'm correct in that. I think I heard someone talking about that. They might play one more time. So if that's the case, if they do play one more time, imagine the record's broken by Ovi against the Penguins. Like, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it certainly would be. And of course, like, all the memories come up, right? Like, the first one, Elliot Friedman brought this up, like the playoff game between the Penguins and the Capitals, where Crosby and Ovi both had hat tricks. You guys will remember that one. So many great moments between the Caps and the Penguins, and Ovi and Fleury in particular. Chad, yes.
Last game of the season, Caps and Pens, April 17th, 7 p.m., could be absolute magic, because they've only got 9 games left in the seasons. The Capitals do, that is. So 9 games, he's got to score 5 goals. Pens, that last game of the season, that could be electric, man. We will be watching that for sure. If
absolutely. So Ovi, again, 4 away from getting to 893, and he needs one more to get to 894 and hit the all-time record, officially passed, the great one for that. So, all right, fellas, we'll finish off with our last item here for Core 4. Let's talk about goaltender interference a little bit. I know we're kind of ending off on a negative one here, but this was a big topic this week. Obviously, there's that call on the Kyle Palmieri goal earlier in the week that, looking back, like that could cost the New York Islanders their season. Just a terrible call, and players in and around the blue paint and contact, whether it's initiated by the player or the goaltender. Goaltender interference is a topic, and this is all coming up again right after the NHL general managers meetings, where it was reported that 52 out of the 54 examples that were shown had everybody basically agree that those were good goals or those were goaltender interference, one of the two. But yeah, it was a big week for just goals getting called back, and certainly in controversial fashion.
Yeah, unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs high sticking pucks, then it's a goal no matter what. That one was a little sketchy, but I mean, it goes to show when a guy like Patrick Waugh is calling out Toronto in the reviews and saying, if they're not willing to make a decision, then why do we even need them? It's just unclear. It seems like a different ruling every single time there's goaltender interference, and it always seems to happen at a big moment in the game, and that's because people are scrumming the crease. It's important time. You have to score a goal, and then a goalie kicks their leg and it grazes a player's skate, or they stick their arm out and their knob of their stick catches a guy. It goes both ways, and that's the problem. It has to be more clear and more. Just call everything goaltender interference, or call, it's too unclear. I don't know what else to say.
It's the gray area that really makes it so difficult, because, hockey fans, especially new fans who don't know the history of how, goalie interference has been called over time. Like, you see that goal with, I just had it on the screen, Palmieri in front of Merzlikins, and he barely touches him and it doesn't count. And then you see other plays where, it's in the goalie's pads and whoever it is jams it in, and it does count. And it's like, if you're a new hockey fan, how are you supposed to know what the actual rule is? So the gray area is really the killer. But if you want it black and white, then you obviously you go back to Dallas playing Buffalo in the playoffs, and you get that infamous foot in the crease goal, So it's like, you can't have it both ways. It either has to be black and white, or it has to be that gray area. And I think the gray area is better, even though it obviously has its major pitfalls. So I don't know. It's not a fantastic look. It makes goalies look soft, I think, at times, which is frustrating, because hockey is, the toughest sport in the world, I think. But at the same time, this is someone who advocates for goalies. I have to say that, the goalie has to be able to make the save. So if someone is impeding that ice where the goalie needs to get to, if it's in and around the blue paint, then yeah, that's goalie interference. So I'm on the fence. I don't really have a strong opinion about a lot of these calls, because I've just seen it go both ways so many times. I just don't know what to think anymore. But
I've seen goals get called back when guys aren't even in the crease. They're standing at the top of the crease, and like the knob gets caught, or they, their butt is against their jersey when they're in the butterfly, and it gets called off. It's like, how is it possibly goaltender interference if you're not in the crease?
Yeah,
I feel
or
like
when
if
the
you're
goalie
not in the
initiates
crease, you
the
should
contact.
be able to body check the goalie. Like, just at the end of the day, stay in the net then. And I don't know. It's frustrating at the end of the day watching goals get called back that way. And the thing that I get frustrated with the most is when a goal goes in and the goalie immediately turns and looks directly at the ref because they got grazed, and then the whole cycle starts.
I'm so guilty of that. I'm so guilty of that case in men's league. I do that every time. And high stick, I'm even worse. And speaking of high sticks too, like the Matthews game winner the other night, I think the refs took note of that, because there was a Marner assist in the game that they're playing currently as we record this against Anaheim. Marner bats it down. around shoulder height. Not very conclusive, but it was called back. Anaheim challenged, and the refs were like, all right, we can't have this happen 2 games in a row where a high stick leads to a goal for the Maple Leafs. So, but all I want to say is I can think of one more controversial high stick between the Leafs and the LA Kings that I won't bring up, but any Leaf fan knows that high stick, and that's why we hate Kerry Fraser to this day. But so high sticks between the Leafs and the LA Kings, I don't want to hear about it. Okay, we're even now.
I don't even, when you're able to review it, I don't even know how you screw up a high stick call.
Yeah, I know. It was the fact that, and not to get more into this, but it was the fact that on the play, it was called as no high stick. The ref right in front of his eyes called it as no high stick. And then they review it and everyone on the screen is or sees the screen and it's like, oh, geez, that's probably a high stick. But he called it no high stick on the ice. So what are you going to do?
Well, and at the end of the day, I think we're just worried about, some of the stuff creeping into the Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, and seeing goals get called back and controversial calls, and whether it's with goaltender interference or puck over glass or high sticks or offsides, whatever it is. And so anyway, I think we just have to keep our fingers crossed that we're not going to see too many of those when we are into the most important time of the year, and we're certainly close to that. So there we go.
No, then we get into offsides where apparently stick handling is not controlling the puck.
Yeah, but going in backwards is fine, and sometimes he has control, sometimes he does. Not
that I want to stick on this core for too long, but maybe they should have a hot mic in Toronto and have accountability and be able to hear this discussion about this, because that's going to do 2 things. It's going to give fans, a little understanding on why the call is going which way. And it also is going to stop us from having to listen to commentators ramble and vamp while the review is going on, because it is insufferable to listen to a bias home or whatever feed you're watching. If you're watching the away or watching the home, listen to them talk about a hit to the head or a goal one way or the other, a goaltender interference, because they're so biased always. And it's tough, especially if you're watching the Boston feed, listening to them, on a hit to the head or an elbow. It's like, oh, he's fine. No, he targeted the shoulder and the guy hit him in the temple. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, at least it's not, who's it, Jack Edwards anymore. Yeah. He was the most biased, I think, around the league. Everyone knew that. But I will say, when watching any type of play like that, that's reviewable, the best feed to watch has to be MJ and Gord Miller on TSN, no matter who you're watching, because most of the broadcasters or play-by-play guys or between the bench guys, I'm not going to say they don't know the rule book, but they don't know it as well, I would say, in my opinion, as MJ and Gord do. So, for example, if that high stick comes up, MJ, Mike Johnson, TSN, is going to say, yeah, this is the rule. Been here a million times. I did my prep. This is what it is, and he's usually really, really good at that. He's the one I really like watching that broadcast, by the way. That's why, when World Juniors comes around every year, that's why MJ and Gord doing it is just the best case scenario, because I think they're 2 of the best combo.
Yeah, Gord Miller is my favorite play-by-play guy for sure. Still miss the combo of him and Ray Ferraro, but we can get into that.
I think MJ's better. I think MJ's better. I really do.
They are a great duo for sure. Okay, boys. Core 4 is in the books for 237 here. And now let's talk about Calder Trophy candidates. And this has been an exciting rookie class to watch this year, whether it's Lane Hutson, whether it's MAcklin Celebrini, whether it's Matvei Michkov, Dustin Wolf in Calgary, the list goes on. So we'll get into a candidate each and have a little discussion here. So, Case, you have a vintage San Jose Sharks jersey on there. It looks good, man. And, there's obviously the obvious choice. You could maybe be going with more of a dark horse pick here. Let's find out where you are going with this.
Yeah, I'm picking Will Smith to get the second most amount of votes on the San Jose Sharks when MAcklin Celebrini wins the Calder Trophy. I think it's not hard to make a case for this. I think it's a 3-horse race at this point. Celebrini leads rookies in goals. He leads rookies in points per game. He missed a few games. He's scoring at a very eerily similar pace to Connor Bedard's rookie season, Calder winning season last year. And yeah, has more goals than he did. And, he's a point or two behind Michkov with 13 less games, all while being on a garbage team where he is their best player, leading forwards in ice time, and being one of the few guys who gives that team a chance to win games. Just look at the expected goals when he's on the ice compared to almost everyone else on that team other than, maybe an Eklund or a Toffoli. So I think it's a pretty clear call here. He has the most impact to his team at the age of 18 compared to all the other rookies.
Yeah, he's having an absolutely incredible season there. All of the numbers and just like the vibes with the San Jose Sharks right now with him and Will Smith and, Askarov being good and like everybody. And like even a guy like Mukmadulin is looking good out there. Like they played the Leafs the other night, and yeah, like they've got some real players who are going to be good in the future, and they've got Toffoli too, who you mentioned, who is just the perfect guy to be there, to be a complimentary player, to help out Will Smith and MAcklin Celebrini. And like when you talk about Celebrini, I know he's going to be really good in the future, but you watch him now and he gets compared a lot to a guy like Connor Bedard, and I've seen some crazy takes this season because Connor Bedard's having a bit of a down year and Celebrini's having such a good year as an 18-year-old. But it's hard to look at the two players and not think that a guy like Celebrini just impacts the game in a different way, because not only can he score and pass, but the little things about his game, like the stick checks. He's so effective in the corner or on the half wall and just doing the little things right. So yeah, when I watch Celebrini, I've watched him twice this year. Both times they beat the Maple Leafs in a shootout, which is brutal. But yeah, when you watch him play, it's like he is a real player today, and the skill, the talent, the like actual hard work that you see in his game is just off the charts. So I could see Celebrini winning the Calder for sure. But what I will say, and I think I said this last week too, when we were talking about maybe doing a Calder episode, is that because it's a 3-horse race, it's very interesting because we have a player at each position this year that has a really good chance to win it. And the difficult part is comparing those players because they all play different positions. So it's like, it's really tough to compare a MAcklin Celebrini rather to a Lane Hutson, to a Dustin Wolf. And shocker, those are the 3 players we're going to be primarily talking about this episode because they all play different positions, impact their team in different ways. So yeah, with Celebrini, I could definitely see him winning. He's been incredible this year.
Yeah, he certainly has been. Just electric is the word that I would use to describe 71 on the San Jose Sharks. I've mentioned this before, but it was great to get Craig Button from TSN on a few years ago before the World Juniors to talk about Celebrini and his comparison of Celebrini to Jonathan Toews as a guy who can just do it at both ends of the rink, is all over the ice. You look at Celebrini and the puck battles that he wins. Chad, you kind of mentioned that a little bit there. The little puck plays that he makes, the stick checking, all of it. And then just the skill, the release of his shot, the passing, the playmaking, all of it. And he just has that confidence and that swagger that is just infectious. Just such a perfect fit with the San Jose Sharks, given the fact that, he played for the junior Sharks growing up, in the Bay Area. his dad working for the Golden State Warriors, and because of his dad's position with the Warriors in sports science, I mean, this is a kid who has been training like an elite athlete for a long time, and that has certainly resulted into a lot of personal success for him in his first season in the NHL. He has been so fun to watch, and I absolutely love the kid, and he is certainly right near the top of the list for me when it comes to winning the Calder Trophy this season. Just absolutely loved Celebrini this year and what he's been able to do on again another pretty bad Sharks team, but all the pieces are there, as we've talked about. Mike Greer's done a great job.
I think from what both of you are saying, it's exactly my mentality with Celebrini, Chad with the little things that he does in the game, the kind of 200-foot game, and then Harper, the way he's trained and has been brought up. It's maturity. Like he just seems like a mature player at the age of 18. Now it seems like he's having a lot of fun for a guy who's on a team that's lost a lot of games, but it still just seems like maturity. And I don't know, you look at the Chicago Blackhawks, who are in a similar situation, and it just seems like doom and gloom, and there's unsportsmanlike penalties being taken by Bedard, and they just kind of seem miserable out there. Seth Jones got out of town because he wasn't having any fun. That's a joke, but
I think it's probably true, though.
You look at the San Jose Sharks, and they're having fun. They're getting better. They're losing a lot, but they're getting better in the process and don't hate their lives.
Yeah, Macklin and Will Smith are hanging out with Jumbo Joe and Patty Marleau and Matthews and Marner and all their kids. You guys saw that photo of all of them together, probably playing mini sticks, even though the kids are like 10 years old now. And also, like, yeah, having a lot of fun, but losing a lot of games. That's just, I mean, you hope it gets better in San Jose. I think they have the pieces going forward to get better. I certainly trust their rebuild process a lot more than I do Chicago's, that's for sure. And also the one thing I wanted to mention too, did you guys see that Smith and Celebrini recreated the Dwayne Wade photo? Like the photo, the basketball photo, where you guys, anyway, whatever. I can share that with you later. But they recreated it, and I thought it was funny. But yeah, it was
I didn't
good.
see that. But
yeah, the photo though. You surely know the photo. If I show you the photo, you'll
Dwayne.
I'll pull it up.
Dwayne Wade back in the Miami Heat days. That was a long time ago. I forget that one for sure. But Celebrini has been awesome. By the way, too, kind of hoping that he wins the Calder Trophy as well. Not only has it been a great season for him and a tough season for San Jose, but did you guys see that the New York Rangers team bus accidentally scraped his Range Rover as well? Like, oh my goodness. But
Chad and I were talking about this. Because he sent me the NHL discussions post about it, and it's like a picture it's clickbait. It's a picture of Celebrini, and it says hit by a bus. And then like the caption underneath is Celebrini's car is hit by a bus in the parking lot after the Rangers game. And it's like a scrape.
Yeah.
Too. It's like they took the corner too wide or too close. And but just like the clickbait of it, it's like it might as well say dead. Celebrini's phone died after the game. Like it's like
goes hit by bus and doesn't say anything. Gosh. But anyway, sorry, that's the photo I was talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you guys know the photo, but they recreated that, and I thought that was funny. But yeah, the clickbait, man, was just insane with that. I and all the comments on NHL discussion were saying the same thing, like, "Oh, here we go!" Like now he's into clickbait, and whoever runs the account replied, "Bro, I've been doing this for 10 years, like clickbaiting for 10 years." So anyway.
Oh, geez. All right. Celebrini, obviously great choice. Just he's been electric this year. Okay, Chad, let's get to your candidate. And I have one question for you before you get into it. Is it the goaltender or not the goaltender?
It's the goaltender. Shocker. That's my bag. I'm going to argue what I know, and that's goalies. I got to go with Dustin Wolf. This is my guy to win the Calder Trophy this year. And I wanted to present my argument in a way that directly compares Dustin Wolf to his counterpart on his team, that is in Dan Vladar, because when you talk about how important a guy is to his team, especially as a goalie, I think you don't have to look any further than his goalie partner and just see the difference in play, because to me, the difference is shocking. This season, Dustin Wolf has a record of 24, 15, and 6 on a pretty below average Flames team. We'll get into that. But Vladar has an average of 10, 11, and 6. Okay, so obviously Wolf's record is way, way, way better. 14 more wins, which is just insane. Almost as insane as that Marner breakaway goal. That's great for my fantasy. Continuing with Dustin Wolf, he has a 267 goals against and a 909 save, compared to Vladar's 290 goals against and 893 save. Okay, continuing with this comparison here, Dustin Wolf, 19th in goals saved above expected this season with a plus 12.3. Vladar ranks 61st with a negative 1.7. So Vladar is just a bit below average, and Wolf is towards the top of the league in the top 2/3 of starters, that is. And he was even higher earlier in the season, but as the season's gone on, he's never played this many games in the NHL. His stats have gone down a little bit. Calgary has kind of, faltered a little bit as well, but he's still putting together a really good rookie campaign here. Wolf, like I said, started out really hot, has been coming back down to earth over his last 15 to 20 games, but he's still better than Vladar. So I pulled his last 10 game stats and his last 20 game stats from Money Puck, which is a new feature, by the way, in terms of goals saved above expected, which is really cool to look at. So in his last 10 games, he has a 2.3 goals saved above expected, still positive, and Vladar's is negative 0.7, so just a little bit below average. And in their last 20, Wolf has a plus 0.6 goals saved above expected, so still above average, not by much, but still above average. And Vladar's is a negative 3.1. So that's a lot of numbers just to say that over this season, it's been night and day between the two goalies, even though they're playing behind the same team. So if you could have Wolf start 82 games, this team, the Calgary Flames, that is, might be comfortably in a playoff spot if you extrapolate his record. But if you play Vladar 82 games and extrapolate his record, they're probably in the bottom 5 in the entire league. And I know that's not
Dustin Wolf for 82 games. I think the 6-foot goalie would have a liquid groin by the end of it.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so obviously you can't necessarily do that, but it just goes to show that the numbers are super different. And that's the reason why a team like Seattle, again, who I feel like I always bring up when you talk about one good goalie, one bad goalie, you've got Grubauer in the net who can't stop a beach ball. And then you've got Joey Decord, who for the first half of this season was like one of the best goalies in the league. So it's interesting, you'd think teams would focus on trying to get 2 good guys, but anyway, I digress from that. A few interesting facts, and then I want to talk quickly about how bad the Flames are, because I don't think, I think their record is much better than what their team actually is. They cannot score, but a few interesting facts. Wolf was a 7th rounder in 2019. He was drafted 214th overall, which was 4th last in the entire draft, which is insane to me that he's this good and has been this good for a while. He was the AHL MVP in 2023, which was the first time a goalie had ever won that award since 2004. So the first time in a long time that a goalie won that award. The last guy to do it, and Harp, you'll like this, the last guy to win AHL MVP as a goalie, can you guess who it was? Do you have any inclination? It's a very random name, by the way, but there is a connection. So if you can guess it, I'll probably give you $100.
Oh, Ryan Miller?
No, I didn't expect you to get it. It's a pretty crazy one. But Jason LaBarbera.
Oh, okay. Goalie coach in Calgary.
That's
Good
right.
pull.
That's where that's where the connection comes in. So you're right. Goalie coach for the Flames right now, it's just funny. Like all these connections, right? Like such a small world. And then also have to bring up Wolf was the AHL goalie of the year in 2022 and 2023. So not only did he win the MVP of the entire league in 2023, but he also won goalie of the league back-to-back years, which is just incredible. And yes, Case, you mentioned it. Doing all of this at just 6 feet tall, which I doubt it. I doubt he's 6 feet tall. You look at him play, there's no way. Like he's got to be like 5'10". Like there's no way he's 6 feet tall.
Do you doubt that he's 166 pounds like they have him on Hockey DB?
Yeah, he's probably 5'10", 170. That'd be my guess right there. But okay, couple last points on just to show how good Wolf has been this season despite his team. The Flames are 26th in the entire NHL in expected goals for. In actual goals for, they're 31st. They've only scored more goals than Nashville. It's insane. Like this team just does not score. Their leading scorers right now are Kadri and Huberdeau, who are both tied with 58 in 72 games. After that, it drops off completely. And it's Mackenzie Weegar with 41 in 71. So it's just like it's a team who does not score at all. In terms of expected goals against and actual goals against, they're about middle of the pack. So they're okay defensively, but those actual goals against are propped up a bit by incredible goaltending by Dustin Wolf. And the cherry on top, what is a very simple number that can kind of differentiate playoff teams from non-playoff teams? Goal differential. Okay, it's a very simple number, but it's pretty reliable over the years. They're a minus 25. So they're just not a good team. They don't score enough. And imagine the pressure on a young goalie like Dustin Wolf coming into every game knowing if you give up 2, you're probably toast because your team doesn't score. Like the pressure of that, and to still be able to put together what I think is a remarkable rookie season, even though his numbers have dipped a little bit. I think he for sure has to be in consideration for the Calder. And earlier in the season, I would have said Vezina too. I think he's been that good. But like I said, his numbers have dipped a little bit.
The team, Calgary, they seem to be just stale until someone throws gasoline on the Flames. And then they score in bursts, and it's often been late in games, especially in this, last third of the season. And he's done enough to just always keep them within striking distance in his games, in the games he plays. That's the difference between him and Vidar. He keeps them right there, and then they get these spurts and they come back and win hockey games, and it's because of him. The last game I watched him play against the Devils, he kept them in there the whole time, and they came back and won the game. He's done that countless times, and it's really impressive. His records in his career are just ridiculous when you look at them. Like you look
Nasty.
at the WHL record, it's 106 wins, 34 losses, and 6 overtime losses. Like that's ridiculous. His AHL 97, 32, and 10. So he's a winner. That's all he knows. And he's done it at every level, and he's continuing to do that as a rookie. I mean, he had a few games last year where he was not a winner, but he's completely turned that around so far. And it's because he's keeping his team in games. And that's all you need to do when you have a team like the Flames who are incredibly streaky. So, like I said, it's a 3-horse race, and I fully can see all 3 of these guys winning the Calder. But here's my argument against Dustin Wolf. And Chad, you started by saying that it's hard to compare all of these different positions, and how are these voters going to do it? Well, it's the worst for Dustin Wolf because they're going to compare him to the last Calder winning goalie, I feel like. And Steve Mason played 61 games in his rookie season with a .916 save percentage, getting his team to the playoffs where they were swept inevitably, but he got them there. And at this rate, it doesn't seem to me like the Calgary Flames are going to be in the playoffs. And Dustin Wolf did not play 61 games, and he has a .909, not a .916. So despite him having an incredible season and really being the reason why his team is in the playoff race, I feel like he's, stuck with the only example of rookie goaltenders in the last 20 years. So
Yes, that is very fair. What year did Steve Mason
0809.
0809. The league average save percentage in 0809 was 908. The league average save percentage this year is 900. So it's actually closer than I thought it was going to be. And Mason's season is very, very impressive. But times have changed a little bit. But I definitely hear your point loud and clear that it's going to be really tough for the voters to say, hey, listen, this goalie was better than Celebrini, who's going to get 70 points, better than Lane Hutson, who's going to be the first rookie defenseman since whatever Quinn Hughes to put up X amount of points. Like, so I totally hear you there.
10 shutouts, Steve Mason.
Wow.
That's insane. And by the way, if the Flames do somehow get into the playoffs, it will be on the back of Dustin Wolf, and he will have a legitimate chance to win. I think that ship has sailed, though, like you said. 2 weeks ago, totally in the realm of possibility. Now with the surging Blues, doesn't seem like that's going to be even a remote possibility. So you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though the Flames, regardless of whether they get in or not, they have been a great story this season. The steps that they've taken, we did not expect this from this Calgary team. Case, you brought up a little connection there that I was just going to point out before moving on from Dustin Wolf. One of the last goaltenders to win the Calder Trophy. Yes, one of them, of course, is Steve Mason. The other is Andrew Raycroft, who we had on this podcast a month ago, over a month ago, actually, around the time of the Brockville Winter Classic. And we know he is rooting for Dustin Wolf to win the Calder Trophy this year. So just wanted to point that out. I think it's pretty cool that we did have one of the latest goaltenders to win this award on this show. But yeah, Wolf has been terrific for Calgary this season. He has been a great story. Case, you summed it up. He's just a natural born winner. That's all he's done throughout his young career so far. He will continue to get better and backstop the Flames to success down the road. A lot has gone right for this team, but Chad, as you alluded to earlier on as well, a lot of the numbers don't look good and don't really support the Calgary Flames being a playoff team and all of that. So yeah, and I mean looking at Raycroft. And that
dude, look at this. So the year he won the Calder, and like Case, we were talking about Mason's numbers in the year he won. Raycroft had a 926 and 57 games played, which is just insane. And in 03-04, the save percentage average for the league was 911. But still, a 926 is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, come on.
And
actually,
I feel like that was a good team.
that was a really good team. And also, I wanted to bring this up too. 2015-16, in terms of the save percentage on average for the league, that's when it peaked at a 915. Like that's, like, think about that.
Yeah.
Like goalies having a 915 now, we think of them as like the best in the league, but on average, just in like less than 10 years ago, I guess almost exactly 10 years ago now, it used to be a 915 on average. Crazy.
Yes, certainly is. All right, fellas. Well, I got to get to the next obvious choice here, and that is Lane Hutson of the Montreal Canadiens for the Calder Trophy. The Habs with a big win over Florida today as well to get themselves back into a wild card spot, and they are in this position largely because of Lane Hutson, of course. And here's a stat that just makes your eyes pop. It's Hutson becoming the fifth rookie defenseman in NHL history to have 50 assists in a season. 50 assists in your rookie season. Just absolutely incredible. 54 now. He is 1 point away from 60 this year in 70 in less than 75 games. It's absolutely incredible. You watch this kid, and he's a very unique player in terms of how he moves around and gets up and down the ice, but it just keeps you on the edge of your seat. The way that he is able to move laterally and use his edges, he is so shifty with the puck, and you just know that anytime he has it on his stick, something exciting is going to happen. And I know that there have been a lot of people out there who have kind of taken an opportunity to rip on him a little bit for his defensive play. Honestly, has not been all that bad, really. Like there are the incredible offensive numbers, of course, but this kid can play defense too. Make no mistake about it. And he is first power play for the Canadians. Again, just a guy who already is looking like their franchise number one defenseman, and just to see what he's been able to do in his first season in the National Hockey League, I bet there are a lot of teams kicking themselves, after the fact, saying to themselves like, how did we let this kid slip into the second round? And then, like, did they not learn from this? No, they clearly didn't, because guess what? His brother Cole, who looks pretty damn good as well, he slipped all the way to the second round as well. And that stings, particularly for me, because the Buffalo Sabres traded that second round pick that Washington used to draft Cole Hutson for Beck Mallenstein. Ouch, that hurts. But yeah, Hutson, the fact that he slid all the way to the 62nd pick in the year that he was drafted, a lot of teams kicking themselves. And like, look at that list. Like, there is no one really on that list that has put up significant numbers. And you just look at his numbers this year in the National Hockey League with where he was drafted. It's absolutely incredible. This kid is so much fun to watch, and he will be for years to come. And I don't doubt it that we're going to see Lane Hutson win a Norris Trophy sometime in the future. So Lane Hutson of the Montreal Canadiens to finish it off, boys.
Yeah, just wanted to point out that Cole, as you just mentioned him, got a point on the tying goal in the NCAA, and the third brother got the game-winning goal in overtime to send them to the Frozen Four, them being Boston University. Lane Hutson, like you said, Harp, just pure excitement when he's on the ice. Kind of feels like a carbon copy of Quinn Hughes, the way he skates around and around and around, waiting for a gap and waiting for an opportunity with just like endless stamina and endless puck control. And yeah, something's going to happen when he has the puck. Just kind of a pure playmaker. 5 goals and not expected to have any more. Like, he's getting as much as he's expected to get, but then contributes so much. I think that when people watched him in the World Juniors, they saw him play exactly like this and said, okay, but is this going to work in the NHL at his size, the way he's skating around? Is this going to work? Well, it's working. I don't know if they just haven't figured it out yet, and like next year he's going to get absolutely bodied, but he's silenced the haters from the World Juniors, and it's been really impressive to watch him play so far. Super exciting player.
100%. And Case, you're totally right. And I was probably one of those guys saying like, okay, like I see what a 5'9", whatever, $165 player can do at the World Juniors. Yeah, I mean, he's listed as 162 on the NHL website. Like, I'd be shocked if he's still 162, but yeah, like you're looking at it in the World Juniors saying, okay, sure, show me in the NHL, but he hasn't missed a step. Leads all rookies in points this season, despite being a defenseman, which is just crazy. I think Habs fans at the time of the Michkov draft. We're upset that they didn't take Matvei Michkov, but now you look at the two players who are both rookies this season, and obviously it wasn't a decision between Michkov and Lane Hutson, but you look at those two players now who are battling it out for Rookie of the Year, and Hutson, as a defenseman, has more points than Michkov. So it's kind of crazy how things work there. And yeah, in terms of points per game, as we talked about, Celebrini is the guy who leads it and is having an incredible season. But as a defenseman on a team that wasn't expected to be that good, to be their power play quarterback, to be a guy who plays nearly 23 minutes every single night for the team, like it's truly incredible. And to be just 5'9" and to be doing what he's doing, to lead the league in head fakes per 60, like it's just so fun to watch, I gotta say. And at the beginning of the year, yeah, I was one of the guys clowning on him for those head fakes and for getting absolutely ripped apart in the defensive end. And yeah, that still happens sometimes. But what do you expect from a defenseman who is able to create this much offense at such a young age? Like, Quinn Hughes was not the defender he is today when he first stepped into the league. Cale Makar, same thing. Like, I think both of those guys defend better than Hutson does now, obviously, but they've been in the league for a while now. So if he can work on that, if he can get better in his own zone and continue putting up the points, and and not become a guy like Erik Karlsson who just never figured it out, they're going to be in really good shape going forward. The Habs, that is.
So I made an argument against Dustin Wolf, and I'm going to make an argument against Lane Hutson just to try to drive it to MAcklin Celebrini and the guy I talked about. So here's the way I looked at it. I looked at last year. Bedard won handedly over Brock Faber. Bedard scoring at the same pace as Celebrini on a team just as bad at the age of 18. Meanwhile, Faber is scoring similarly, albeit much less than Hutson. Like, I get that. I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1 comparison. On a playoff team or a competitive team at the age of 21. Faber, 8 goals, 47 points. So yes, a lot less points than Hudson's going to end with here. But all the arguments you are making about Hutson, or can make about Hutson, you could have made for Faber. Faber played 24-58 time on ice in 82 games for the Minnesota Wild in his rookie season. Was in the rookie scoring race as a D-man, and he even played defense. Faber started 17.3% of his shifts in the defensive zone. Hutson has been sheltered, starting 6.1% of his shifts in the defensive zone. They know that he has struggled in his own end, so they've sheltered him in that way. They did not do that with Brock Faber, who was playing 24-58 a night. And yet, at the end of the day, the voters picked goals, production at 18 on a dog shit team over a D-man logging minutes, putting up points as a 21-year-old on a competitive team. So although I think both players have maybe even an equal right at the Calder Trophy, I imagine the voting goes similarly again this season.
That's a really good point, just based on
excellent
historically what voters tend to do. And yeah, that's pick the forward, which is what makes this year so interesting. Like I've already mentioned before, having a guy from each position that could feasibly win it. But you're right to, beat out the forward, the first overall pick in MAcklin Celebrini. It's going to have to be a pretty special season from Wolf or Hutson or Michkov or someone else. But yeah, I think Hudson's having an incredible season. Do I think he's the front runner? Probably not. Do I think he has a legit chance to win it? 100%, because what he's doing offensively as a defenseman is, I don't want to say unheard of, but Harp, you mentioned that 50 assist stat. So that's, impressive in and of itself. And he's got another 9 games left and he's got 59 points right now. What happens if he finishes with 70 or 75 points? Like, that's insane as a defenseman. So I'm not saying he's going to, but, if he were to outpace his current production and finish with over 70 points, then now we're talking about historical stuff here from a guy who really wasn't expected to be this impactful right away. We all knew he was extremely talented. We saw all the highlights at BU. We saw him in the World Juniors, but did anyone really think that Lane Hutson, the almost third round pick from just a couple years ago, was going to come into this season and be as good as he is? No, probably not. So it's really impressive.
I would say that's true for everyone who's not a Habs fan, because they were saying Hutson was going to be unbelievable, and they also say Demidov is going to be Wayne Gretzky. So.
Yeah, and they say Caden Primo was Carey Price, and Dustin Tokarski was Carey Price, and every other goalie who came through the system, like Dobesh and Montembeau, were all Carey Price.
Jacob Fowler, who's coming as well, you can throw him into that too. I will say too, Case brought up just some excellent points of how it all shaked out last year, and I could certainly see that happening here. It makes a lot of sense. It's always good to look back at the year prior and make those comparisons and look at the similarities. There's one thing though that I think makes it different this year, and will automatically give the edge to one of these three guys, well, really to one of two of them, is if one of them ends up in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think then that will really seal it for them, in my opinion. If the Montreal Canadiens, who are the only team in the mix here, in the playoffs, these three teams and these three players that we're talking about here, and they ultimately get in with Lane Hutson and the incredible season that he's had as a rookie, to me, that's the big difference right there. That's the big separator if Hutson and the Canadiens actually get into the playoffs.
The last time a defenseman won it, do you guys know off the top of your head? It was the Bunting year, when Bunting was 38 or whatever, as Case would say, and he had an incredible year. But it was really between Trevor Zegras and Moritz Seider. Seider won it in 21-22, and he had 7 goals, 43 assists for 50 points in 82 games, whereas Zegras had, going back 21-22, 61 points in 75 games. So a bit of a comparison there. I think the production is higher on both ends for both guys, but it's interesting. A defenseman who breaks into the league, an older defenseman at that, Seider, broke in when he had already played a couple years pro before that in Germany, I think he played, or he played in Sweden the year before and played in the Dell before that. But he only had 50 points. Well, Hutson already has 54 assists. So
I think a key piece you're missing there is how good Moritz was in his own end. And
that's fair. It's not all about production. You're right.
There was a lot going on.
Exactly.
There. Although, that is a great comparison. Another one you can throw in at the same as Bedard, Faber, and Celebrini and Hutson.
And again, back to you, Case, for a second. Good call on Faber too last season. He really deserved to be right in there and win the award, quite honestly, because he was playing that much and contributing that much to a Minnesota team that didn't have Spurgeon and Brodin for large chunks of the season, I believe. I think that's correct. And for him just to be thrusted into that role, no sheltering whatsoever, it was pretty incredible. And man, oh man, did Minnesota ever find a player in him.
Yeah. And I'd say it's more impressive for a 21-year-old defenseman to be playing 24-58 a night on a playoff team than 24-58 on San Jose. You know what I mean? It's impressive what Brock Faber did last season. He's having a bit of an off year compared to that this year, but man, that rookie season was something from him, and he was right there in the race leading up to it. But at the end of the day, you look at this splits on the votes. All of the first ballots went to Bedard, and almost all the second ones went to Faber, and then Luke Hughes was just behind him with the third place votes.
Yeah. I think if you're LA, you want Faber back. That's a pretty good player, even though he's having a down year a bit compared to last season. But what a player.
Faber for Kevin Fiala. That was the deal.
That's right. And Liam Ogren also was the pick involved too. It turned into Liam Ogren.
Looks like a good player as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, boys, I think that wraps it up here for episode 237, Core 4 stories, and then some conversation about the three-horse race for the Calder Trophy for the NHL's top rookie here in 24-25. So hope you enjoyed it. Great to be on with you guys, and enjoy this week. We will chat again next week for episode 238. Take care.